Hello, everyone. So far we've talked about some different types of financial aid, such as grants and scholarships, and today we'll be introducing another type, which is work study. Now, work study is actually a really amazing type of financial aid, and the reason for that is that it helps undergraduates pay their loan debt while studying. So if you end up taking out student loans, which we'll talk about in the next video, you're going to have to eventually repay that debt. And over time, if you keep waiting, the debt will continue to accrue in value. And that's where we hear those horror stories of huge amounts of student debt. So, the great thing about work study is that you can actually start paying off that debt while you're in college. Now, the work study program is actually a federal program, so it's connected to your FAFSA. And that's why, as we mentioned, the FAFSA is super important because it helps determine your eligibility for work study. And that is because work study is, again, a federal program that is partially financed by government aid. Now, in terms of actually finding work study jobs, those programs will vary by school. So you want to make sure that you look into your college's individual work study programs before applying. And we'll take a look at this later. And work study jobs can actually vary. They are all over the place. So we actually had a webinar on this a few days back for my college that I'll be going to, and they discussed how work study can be something as, low-key as just being a desk manager at a library and checking people in, or it can be, a little bit more time-consuming, such as perhaps being a research student assistant or teaching assistant. And so, work study can really vary, and you should take advantage of those opportunities. So now let's actually take a look at some work study programs. So again, like I mentioned, you want to look at it based on your school. So this is Columbia University, and they're talking about their work study program. You could go to UCLA. They'll have their own work study program. Every college is going to have a different one. We're just looking at this one. So the university will have a lot of information on work study. So that's the place you want to go to figure out the details of work study positions, as well as more explanations on how you can get those jobs. So here, they just gave a basic overview, and they talked about how, again, you have to be a United States citizen. This is an important thing to note in order to get work study positions. They talked about how much the program runs, hourly wages, and then they mentioned how it's, again, granted by school. Now, this is kind of just the overview, but each school will often have its own database of financial aid. So if you go here to find a work study job, for example, it takes you to this database, and this is Columbia's database for on-campus jobs, specifically work study. So most schools will have this type of database where you can look for jobs and see what's out there. So let's take a look. So what we see here is many different, like I said, there's various different types of potential work study jobs. So we have something like community service, like being ESL program coordinator. We have that. We also have admin support, so that's kind of more similar to the library example I gave you. And then we come down some more, and here's how when we start seeing some jobs like lab assistant or research assistant, right? So work study can really run the gamut in terms of types of opportunities, and you want to look for this type of database for your individual school so you can figure out what positions are available. And again, to get any of these opportunities, you have to fill out the FAFSA because based on the FAFSA, they'll determine whether you're even eligible for work study. So for example, some students, they won't be eligible for work study their first year, but maybe they will be the second year. Because remember, we mentioned how the FAFSA is filled out every single year, and your financial circumstances might change between years. But anyways, the bottom line is fill out the FAFSA, and then in your federal aid package, if there's something about work study, this is what they're talking about. So hopefully that was helpful, and thank you for listening. See you next time.